My wife cheated on me with her boss, and I only found out after she tried to sue me for $250, $0 over our house. Turns out she had secretly been funneling money into her side business and using our property as collateral behind my back. I never thought I'd be the guy sitting here, writing this all out, but here we are. It's been a hell of a ride, and honestly, I'm still trying to piece everything together. You think you know someone, your wife especially, and then one day, bam, everything blows up in your face. So I'll start with this. I found out my wife was cheating on me with her boss, Mark. Yeah, Mark. The guy she used to complain about because he was always so pushy at work, but I guess she liked that. It was like a punch to the gut when I realized that the woman I married was out there screwing around behind my back, and she didn't even seem to care how much she was hurting me. The weird thing is, I'd started noticing small changes. Was more secretive with her phone, taking calls in the bathroom or the bedroom, hiding her texts. She'd come home late from work more often, saying she had extra meetings or client dinners, but her stories didn't add up. She'd get defensive when I asked about her phone, say I was being paranoid. That's when I started feeling like I was losing my mind. One night, I decided to check her phone. I know, not proud of that, but I couldn't shake the feeling that she was hiding something. I went through her messages and found nothing at first, just the usual work emails, some flirtatious texts with her boss that she tried to hide. But then I saw a text that made my blood run cold. It was from Mark, talking about their little secret and how they needed to cover their tracks. The next day, I started digging more. I looked at bank statements, credit card bills, anything I could find. Turns out she'd been funneling money into her side business, some online boutique she'd been talking about for months but never really started, and using our house as collateral. She'd secretly taken out a loan and I had no idea. This was just cheating. She was planning some kind of scam behind my back. When I confronted her, it was like talking to a wall. She lied her ass off, said she was doing it all for us. That Mark was just a friend, that I was overreacting. But I had proof. I'd found emails, bank transfers, even a secret folder on her laptop labeled business plans. She looked me in the eye and told me I was crazy, that I was imagining things. That's when I realized this was bigger than I thought. She wasn't just cheating, she was actively betraying me financially, emotionally, everything. It hit me hard. I felt this mix of shock, anger, and deep sadness. I loved her, but I also hated her for what she'd done. My mind was racing, trying to figure out what to do next. Do I fight? Do I leave? Do I try to save what's left? But honestly, at that moment, I just knew I couldn't trust her anymore. Everything she'd ever told me, everything we'd built, it was built on lies. And I was stuck trying to figure out how to undo the damage. After that night, my head was spinning. I couldn't sleep, I couldn't eat. All I kept thinking about was how she had been lying to me for months, maybe longer. The woman I thought I knew, the woman I married, had been sneaking around, funneling money into some secret side business, and using our house as collateral without telling me. It was like discovering she had been playing me the whole time. I started going over everything in my head, trying to connect the dots. The late nights, the strange phone calls, her sudden interest in investing and starting her own business. She'd always been bitchy when I pressed her about her finances, snapping at me to mind my own business. But now I saw she was just hiding everything, making plans behind my back. And worse, she had the audacity to tell me I was overreacting when I confronted her. That was the moment I knew I had to get some proof, something concrete, something undeniable. I decided to hire a private investigator. I figured if she was cheating and scheming, she'd slip up eventually. It took a week, but I got the footage of her sneaking into a hotel. With Mark, they were definitely more than just colleagues. The way she kissed him in the videos, it wasn't just a friendly peck. It was full-on passion, and I could see the way she clung to him, the way she looked at him like he was the only thing that mattered. I felt sick. I'd never felt so betrayed in my life. Meanwhile, I kept digging into the financial mess. I found out she'd taken out a second mortgage on the house, secretly, to fund her side business. She'd been funneling money through fake accounts, using our property as collateral, and I was completely. She'd been planning this for months, maybe longer. The worst part was, She'd been lying about her job, about her ambitions, about everything. She acted like she was working hard, trying to build something for us, but she was just lining her own pockets and screwing around. I was furious. Not just because she cheated, I'd been cheated on before and it hurts, but because she'd been actively screwing with my life. She put us in debt, risked our home, and lied every step of the way. I started thinking about revenge, about how I could make her pay for all this. I wasn't just going to leave quietly and let her get away with it. No, I wanted her to feel what I was feeling, to see what it's like to be betrayed by the person you trusted most. She kept up her lies, of course. She told me she was just stressed, that Mark was just a friend, that the money was for her dream project she'd always talked about. But I knew better now. I knew she'd been using me and the house as a pawn in her game. The more she lied, the more clear it became that I had to do something drastic. I started planning my next move, figuring out how to get back at her, how to expose her, how to make her regret everything. And that's when I realized I wasn't just dealing with a cheating wife anymore. I was dealing with someone who'd been lying to me about everything: my trust, my money, my life. The betrayal cut deep, and I knew I'd have to be smart if I wanted to come out of this with some sense of justice. I wasn't sure what the future held, but I knew I couldn't stay silent. Not anymore. The more I uncovered, the more I felt like I was in some twisted game I didn't even sign up for. My wife was a master at hiding her tracks, or so I thought. I found bank statements showing transfers to her side business, even deposits into accounts I didn't know existed. She'd been funneling money into some online store she claimed was just a hobby, but the truth was, she was running a side empire, and I was the idiot who thought we were just normal, middle-class people trying to get by. What made it worse was the house. Our house. The very place I'd worked my ass off to buy, to pay off, to make a home. Turns out, she'd secretly taken out a second mortgage, using our home as collateral to fund her secret project. I found the paperwork tucked away in a hidden folder on her laptop. She'd been planning this for months, maybe longer. She'd been using our property as a financial weapon, all behind my back. I was furious, but I also felt numb. How could she do this? How could she lie so effortlessly? I kept replaying our conversations, her smiles, her I love yous, while she was secretly planning her escape route. I started thinking about everything I ever believed in, everything I thought was real. It was like waking up in someone else's nightmare. I knew I had to confront her again, but this time I was prepared. I gathered all the evidence: the emails, the bank statements, the secret folder. I wanted her to see I wasn't just some gullible husband anymore. I was the guy who knew everything, who had all the cards. I called her at work, told her I needed to talk, and when she came home that evening, I laid everything out on the table. Her reaction was exactly what I expected. She started lying again, saying I was misinterpreting things, that I was paranoid, that she was just stressed about work. She even had the nerve to say she was trying to save our marriage, that all her actions were for us. I looked her straight in the eyes and told her she was full of shit, that she'd been lying to me from day one, that everything I thought I knew about her was a lie. She got defensive, started crying, then turned angry. She accused me of snooping, of not trusting her, and said I was ruining everything. But I wasn't listening anymore. I had enough proof to blow her whole world apart if I wanted. I told her I knew about the affair, about the side business, about the house. Her face went white for a second, then she snapped back with some bullshit about how she was doing this for us, that she loved me, but I saw the panic in her eyes. That moment, I realized I couldn't keep going along with her lies. I had to decide what I was going to do next. I was angry, betrayed, and I felt like I'd been punched in the stomach. But deep down, I also knew I couldn't let her keep pulling the wool over my eyes. I'd been blind for too long, and now I saw her for what she really was: a manipulative, selfish woman who'd been using me as a pawn in her scheme. I told her I needed some time to think, to figure out what I wanted to do. I told her I'd be taking the house, the bank accounts, and everything else she'd been hiding. She yelled, called me crazy, said I was overreacting, but I didn't care anymore. I was done being the fool. I knew I had to plan my next move carefully because this wasn't just about her cheating anymore. It was about her trying to destroy everything I had built, and I was damn sure going to make her pay for it. After that confrontation, I felt like I was walking a tightrope. On one hand, I was furious and wanted to blow everything wide open, but on the other, I knew I had to play it smart. Was a manipulative woman, and I wasn't about to let her spin her way out of this mess. I decided to get an attorney, someone who knew how to handle financial betrayals and property disputes. I needed a plan, and I needed to protect myself. In the meantime, I started gathering even more evidence. I hired a financial investigator to trace the money she'd been funneling into her side business. Turns out, she'd moved thousands of dollars into offshore accounts, some in fake names, some in accounts I didn't have access to. She'd also been secretly paying Mark, her boss, in cash for consulting, but I knew it was more than that. They'd been having sex, and she'd been using her side business as a cover. I also found out she'd been secretly meeting Mark at a hotel near her office, sometimes multiple times a week. I watched the footage. She'd be all over him, kissing, touching, acting like they were the only two people in the world. It was sickening to see her so carefree, so willing to throw everything away for her affair. And all the while she was telling me she loved me, that it was just work stress, that I was paranoid. Yeah, right. I decided I'd had enough of her lies. I wanted her to see that I wasn't going to be a pushover anymore. I started planning my next move, not just to confront her again, but to take control of the situation. I contacted a lawyer specializing in property and financial fraud. I told him everything, handed him the evidence I'd collected, and asked him what I could do to protect the house and my assets. His advice was clear. I needed to file for separation, freeze the assets, and start legal proceedings to get her out of the house if necessary. Meanwhile, kept up her act. She started crying, saying she was sorry, that she loved me, that she was under so much stress. She begged me to forgive her, to work things out, but I saw through her tears. I knew she was just trying to manipulate me, trying to buy time. She was still lying, still scheming. I refused to be fooled again. I told her I'd be moving out soon, that she had no right to stay in our house while she was actively betraying me and ruining my life. The thing that cut deepest was realizing how much I'd trusted her. I thought we had a solid marriage, built on honesty and respect. But she'd been secretly planning her escape, using me as a pawn, and I was just now waking up to it. I felt betrayed, not just as a husband, but as a man. I'd invested years into that relationship, into building a life together, and she'd been sneaking around, funneling money, having sex with her boss. I knew I had to act fast. I couldn't let her get away with this. I had to protect myself, my property, and my dignity. I started making arrangements to move out, to cut her off financially, and to make sure she didn't walk away with everything. I was angry, yes, but also determined. I refused to let her destroy me, not without a fight. That night, I sat in the quiet of my apartment, staring at the paperwork and footage I'd collected. I felt exhausted, but also strangely relieved. I'd finally uncovered the truth. And now I knew what I had to do. It was going to be a long, messy process, but I was ready. I was done being the fool, and I was about to make her regret every lie she told. The days that followed were a whirlwind. I moved out of the house, leaving her behind with her lies and her secrets. I stayed with a friend for a few nights, just trying to process everything. The legal stuff moved quickly once I handed over all my evidence, the bank statements, the emails, the hidden folders. My lawyer filed for separation, froze her assets, and made sure she couldn't transfer any more money or take the house without my approval. While the legal process was ongoing, I started to feel a strange mix of relief and anger. Relief, because I finally had some control back. Anger, because I knew she was still scheming, still trying to manipulate her way out of this mess. She kept texting me, crying, begging me to come back, saying she'd do anything to fix things. But I wasn't buying it anymore. I saw through her tears and her lies. She'd been caught, and now she was trying to spin her way out of it. One night, I decided to confront her face to face. I went back to the house, not to move back, but to get some closure. She was in the living room, looking like a wreck, her eyes red, her makeup smudged, her bitchy attitude replaced by guilt. I laid out all the evidence I had, told her I knew about her affair, about the money she'd stolen, about how she'd been planning this for months. Her excuses were predictable. She said she was overwhelmed, she didn't mean for it to get so out of hand that Mark was just a distraction, that she still loved me. I looked her right in the eyes and told her she was full of shit, that I'd seen everything, that she'd been lying to me from the start. I told her I was done, that I wasn't going to be her punching bag anymore. I told her that she'd lost everything: her marriage, her trust, her respect. She tried to argue, to cry, to manipulate, but I shut her down. I told her I was going to take everything she'd stolen from me, including the house, and I'd make sure she paid for her betrayal. As I walked out that night, I felt a strange sense of closure. I knew I couldn't fix what she'd broken, but I could take back control. I'd spent years building a life with her, and she'd thrown it all away for some meaningless affair and a side hustle that was going to ruin us. I realized I was better off without her, even if it hurt like hell. I'd lost my wife, yes, but I'd gained clarity. The legal battles dragged on, but I was prepared. I had the evidence, the proof of her lies and her financial crimes. I was going to make sure she paid for what she'd done, not just emotionally, but financially too. I was planning my next steps carefully, knowing I had to be smart. I couldn't just walk away. I had to ensure she didn't screw me over again. Looking back now, I see how much I learned. Trust is fragile and betrayal cuts deep. But I also learned that sometimes you have to hit rock bottom to realize your worth. Betrayal was a wake-up call, a brutal reminder that not everyone is who they pretend to be. I'm still healing, still trying to put the pieces of my life back together, but I know one thing for sure: I'll never let anyone manipulate me like that again. I'll rebuild, stronger and wiser, and I'll make sure she regrets the day she ever crossed me. In the end, I managed to get everything sorted out legally. The house was ours again, and I managed to recover some of the money she'd stolen or hidden. It wasn't easy, nothing about this was easy, but I felt a weight lift off my shoulders once the dust settled. Moved out, and I haven't seen her since. Honestly, I don't even want to. I don't recognize the woman she became, and I don't want to be part of that anymore. What stuck with me the most was how much I underestimated her. I always thought I knew her, but she was hiding a whole different life behind my back. The betrayal went way beyond infidelity. She'd been scheming, lying, and using me for years. It made me realize how important it is to stay vigilant, to keep an eye on your own life, no matter how secure you think things are. I've learned to trust my instincts more, to listen to that little voice that says something's not right. I also learned that revenge isn't about hurting her, it's about reclaiming your life and dignity. I didn't want to be the victim anymore. I wanted to be the guy who took control and made sure she paid for her betrayal. That's what drove me through this whole mess. Now I'm rebuilding. I've started focusing on myself, my career, and my future. I don't regret the pain because it made me stronger. It taught me that sometimes people you love can turn out to be the biggest betrayals, and you have to be ready to walk away and pick up the pieces. To anyone out there going through something similar, I'd say this: trust is fragile, but your strength is. Don't ignore the red flags, don't let anyone manipulate you, and don't be afraid to stand up for yourself. It's not easy and it will hurt, but in the end, you'll come out the other side better for it. Keep your head up, stay vigilant, and never let anyone take away your peace. Because at the end of the day, your happiness and integrity are worth more than any lie or betrayal.